There seems to be people who are seemingly dumb are richer than me.
And maybe you spend so much time in judgment that you're better than everyone else that nobody wants to work with you.
What's that difference between relegate and delegate?
If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Delegation still takes time.
I'm way smarter than them and they're richer than I am.
So how do you overcome that?
He's really intelligent in some ways, and then his wife exposed what a dumbass he is in other ways.
Not to throw you under the bus, but
Oh,
I produce a better product than this person.
so how do you increase the value you create?
But those people always seem to make much more money than I do.
Let's just face it. When you understand these distinctions as an entrepreneur, it's going to set you free.
As I look around some of the people that I know, there seems to be people who are seemingly dumb that are richer than me.
Dumb
Yeah.
and rich. Okay, so first let's make a distinction.
Yeah.
Being smart in one area doesn't mean you're smart in all areas. And there's financial intelligence, there's business intelligence, there's emotional intelligence, and then there's intelligence. And so what happens is when we try to do too much, when we think that we're too smart, we stop collaborating. And when you understand these distinctions as an entrepreneur, it's going to set you free. It's going to help you build more wealth, just have a better life. Like just because someone might be able to have like, let's go like my son's taking his ACT.
Yeah.
Maybe they can crush that. But they know nothing about tax.
Yeah.
They know nothing about, creating automation in their finances. They know nothing about investing or maybe they don't have interest in investing.
Yeah.
And so you have someone that could be really intelligent that takes their money and just hands it to someone else. They go, here, you manage this.
Yeah.
Right. And so how do they know that that's a good person to manage that money? Plus, making money is a different skill set than keeping money.
Yeah.
And, that also keeping money is a different skill set than making money on your money.
Yeah.
Right. So there's the income that you earn. And part of it is we've kind of been indoctrinated. Right. And I think the word doctor in there, indoctrinated, that, hey, if you go to school, right, and then you get some type of degree, and then you get some type of advanced degree, and even more advanced than that, like, MD, PhD, this kind of stuff. Basically, what you're doing is you're increasing the value that you can charge per hour. But that's still time for money, right? And when we think about it, there's a different level of intelligence that says, how do we scale?
Yeah.
How do we use other people's time, other people's ability? How do we create a vision? And so this is a big deal here. Vision. Maybe someone's really, really intelligent, and so they can think of all of the reasons that it's not reasonable for that vision to come to fruition. Nobody's done it before. How would you do it? How would you engineer it? Here's all the things that could go wrong. They might be genius at thinking of all the reasons it can't happen. And maybe someone that's just a little bit more naive, that is willing to just say something that seems a bit outlandish and extreme, actually rallies people around to do it. I remember being in Las Vegas.
Uh-huh.
This had to be like 2003, 2004. And Trump was speaking. I remember him just saying, we're going to build the most beautiful building and it's going to be the best, the biggest, the best, and just said this stuff. Total rhetoric, right?
Uh-huh.
I was like, this dude's never going to pick up a hammer. But the bottom line is he's inspiring other people to take action.
To do it, yeah.
And someone might be so smart that they go, hey, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're like, I just know more than everybody else. And they spend too much time thinking about everything that they know, not enough time in service and helping others.
Yeah. I mean, even it comes down to skill, because I know for myself as an entrepreneur, a lot of times I look at the product I can produce and it's like, oh, I produce a better product than this person. But those people always seem to make much more money than I do.
Right. So let's look at this. Like one is sometimes when people are rich, they're just willing to come out with the minimum viable product. There's someone really smart that would be against their better nature.
Yeah.
That would be offensive to their sensibilities, right?
Yeah, I think offensive is a good word.
They might be willing to act, before having everything perfected.
Yep.
Right. And so all of a sudden, or they might just be willing to get other people to help them and they might be really good at hiring, right? They might be simply really good at business. They just might know the fundamentals of business. They might know the fundamentals of finance, right? And you could be just really, really smart and not have any of this. Like Bill Burr, I think he's an amazing comedian. He would joke about like, what does Steve Jobs do? You know, he's like, he couldn't put together a phone. He just talked, and then other people that were really smart. But the thing is, vision is the rarest commodity. Rarest, because it's those that cast the vision that get paid the most, because vision is what drives value and dollars follow value, right? So what you got to realize is maybe people are so smart they think that that vision's impossible or improbable, or they statistically look at why that can't work, and then they find out all the reasons not to act or not to do something, or they're just so good technically that they think too myopically. They get stuck inside of a box of what they can do.
Yeah.
What is it that they can do, instead of growing that much bigger in what can we do? How can we do this together? Right? Because part of the intelligence is how can you collaborate? Collaborate. A-T, right? How can you collaborate? See, if you're too much like, I know everything and nobody's as smart as me, you're not going to do a good job delegating. And there's this like kind of foundational idea that what if you could do something better than anyone else you know, but it keeps you from the thing that you do very best. So yeah, you could do it better than anyone else, but maybe it drains your energy, right? And maybe you spend so much time in judgment that you're better than everyone else that nobody wants to work with you.
Yeah.
Sometimes charisma goes a long way, right? Sometimes making people feel great about themselves goes a long way. Maybe catalysts that really move things along. They think big. They show people ways that they can win together. They might have an idea they don't know how to execute, but they get other people to execute it. And maybe that person that's so damn smart that knows how to execute it is so myopic and so judgmental that they actually push people away.
Yeah. Yeah, because I've seen it to where individuals who work for, let's say, an entrepreneur who is, you know, theoretically dumber than them, they actually feel very fulfilled because they feel like they're contributing something so much. Versus if they're always in their shadow, it's not as much fun.
Right. The question always is, how big can you think? Not necessarily, how smart are you?
So how do you overcome that? Like for myself, just introspection wise, you know, every time I try to do my minimum viable product, my MVP, it ends up being the finished product, right?
Right, because you have such a high aesthetic and standard, right?
Yep.
And so because of that standard, so let's go to what's called the cycle of creation, okay? So this is going to be super helpful to understand this. So we begin with an idea. It is something that you think of, something that you know about, but we turn that into a concept when we share it. Now other people can help us to brainstorm. They could be soundboards. They can bring their insight and idea to it. But then we eventually want to build a framework, and this is where people really smart get stuck. A framework is where the collaboration exists. It's where the co-creation exists. It's where the model exists. It's where, you know, all of a sudden we have infrastructure. And so maybe you're really smart in some areas, but not smart in thinking about how you can get other people to help you.
Yeah.
And so once there's a framework, there can be real delegation. And then we can have the product, right? Or the service or the experience, right? And that's the first turn. Now, the way that we make turns through here is through two things: mental capital and relationship capital. Mental capital is your ideas, knowledge, wisdom, insights, strategies. It's your tools, you know. People having more with AI that they've got access to mental capital without even having to talk to someone. But there's also relationship capital. So if you have mental and relationship capital, you can move an idea to a concept to a framework to a product to an idea. So someone that's rich in relationships has a strategic advantage. Someone who's got tons of mental capital, but minimal relationship capital, they're at a major disadvantage. See, and so they could be ridiculously smart, but not resourceful. They might not have as many people that want to help them out, willing to help them out.
Yeah.
Because they're not thinking about how everyone wins. Like, I think there's like a it's almost like a jail cell in their mind of like, how could someone be so stupid? And when they project that, then other people don't feel excited to be around them.
Yeah, they don't feel fulfilled.
Right? So one is, are we just willing to dream big enough to do something of consequence? You know, and the way that I would recommend people dream big is you forget about how much time it will take. You forget about how much money it will take, and you don't worry about how much ability you currently have. These three are limiting factors when we're talking about a vision. And to me, a vision is different than a goal or an objective. A vision is beyond your current reach, right?
Yeah.
It requires other people's capabilities and resources to help you as well. If you can do it on your own, it's a goal. If it requires other people, it's a vision. And so prosperity is not a do-it-yourself game. That's the thing. Prosperity is not do-it-yourself, right? And maybe people that believe that they're so smart, they judge others, they push others away.
Yeah.
They don't play nice with others, right? Also, like, my son has a really high IQ, and that's also makes it hard for him socially.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't have he's had to learn the social stuff and take social cues, and he's a little bit behind there because he has this really high IQ, but that didn't translate into him, you know, being interested in something like money.
Yeah. I mean,
like, you know, your interests matter too.
it's the whole IT department, right?
Yeah.
A bunch of smart people who no one can get along with.
You got to ask, like, what do you actually care about? You know, maybe money's not their biggest concern, where someone else that is a big concern for them. Maybe like they just don't care. They'll just pay the tax because they're just focused on what they do. Like, we have to look at like, what is their entire makeup and how do they operate? So to me, the people that get really wealthy, first off, they know how to co-create. Second, they know how to address the things that help them, you know, the things that harm them and have them escape from the standards that they want. A lot of people are afraid of failure. A lot of people are afraid to take action. A lot of people are afraid of others' judgment. So they escape into video games, or they escape into TV series, or they escape into like drugs or some other type of addiction. It's those people that can address that properly and actually be willing to hear the word no quite often.
Yeah.
Because you have to value yourself enough to ask for what you want. And when people are uncertain about that, or they don't understand relationships, they don't ask for what they want, and they have to do it all themselves. When they do it all themselves, there's limited capacity to what they have. And then we have to learn to delegate. And if someone's really smart, maybe they're not good at delegating. I like to see people that can delegate roles, like permanently offload something from them and allow someone else to do it that might be 80% as effective as you. But guess what? That if you could do the thing that nobody else can do, that's more valuable than you doing things that you're better than everybody else at, but it drains your energy.
Yeah.
And then finally, any big thing that's really going to make a difference, it requires collaboration, which is a team effort, which is there's only so much time someone has. There's only so much money someone has. There's only so much ability one person can have. So if we don't learn to co-create and collaborate, then we stagnate. And you could be ridiculously smart and lonely.
Yeah.
You could be ridiculously smart and have zero financial IQ, right? So it's a different intelligence, just like emotional intelligence is different than intelligence, just like financial intelligence is different than intelligence. The question is, what is it that you're so smart at? And if what you're understanding that you're not, where can you learn?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and it's interesting because having someone do it at maybe 80% of the level that, you know, I could do something.
Yeah.
The idea is, well, at least it's done.
Right.
You know, in my mind, I could do it better, but it would be better just to, you know, let someone else do it at 80%.
Yeah. Constraining is you try to do too much on your own.
Yeah.
Maybe you're all about saving money. Maybe you're about perfection. You know, and sometimes people that say they're perfectionists, they're just procrastinators. Maybe it's because you don't have enough self-esteem, right? Maybe because you've always been told from the time you're young, if you're really smart, oh, you're special, you've got this figured out. And like, you didn't develop the work ethic.
Yeah.
Right. And then maybe you judge yourself harshly because you're like, how am I this smart and I'm not further ahead?
Yeah.
And so that judgment could be a big block from actually being prosperous and creating value. See, because money doesn't even really care about your intelligence. It just cares about what kind of value you create. So how do you increase the value you create? Well, number one is definitely if you have your own skills, that's going to be very useful, especially if those are like the exponential type of skills that the world really is looking for. You know, that's going to make you where, like, let's just face it, people that are really good at sales make more money than some of the geniuses out there.
Yeah.
right? Sales just moves the needle for a lot of people. So where are those exponential skills? The second is, how well can you collaborate? How well can you work in a team environment? How well can you have other people feel appreciated? How well do you listen, right? You know, like these are the kind of things, like listening is a skill, man. I've had to learn to listen, Wes, and I'm a listener, as you can see from comments from my old videos. Like, why doesn't Garrett ever let his guests talk? He's like, yeah, that's why we don't have guests really anymore, right? So I'm really good at listening to my mentors.
Yeah.
I'm really good at listening to my wife, but that was a skill I had to develop. And if someone has this torture of being so damn smart that they can't listen, see, the thing is, the wealthiest people just think the biggest. Right. And what I mean by that is the more people that you reach, right, or the more value that you create or depth that you create, the more money there will be. But if you're stuck in not serving enough people, like some of the smartest people we know, they're really smart, but they never share that mental capital.
Yeah.
See, and if we don't have a bridge from mental capital to relationship capital, then all we had was potential. And potential is very different than profit. Profit isn't actually someone pays you money because of the value that provided. So when we take our mental capital and we can serve others, when we can solve big problems, when we can add value, guess what? When we bring that to people, that's what creates our financial capital. And so if someone is stuck in their own mind, they don't know how to share, they don't know how to market, they don't know how to sell, they don't know how to collaborate. They might have all the solutions, but it doesn't actually translate to other people.
Yeah.
You've got to have it impact people. You've got to have it reach people. And if it doesn't, you might just be paid as a technician, right? And the thing is, who gets paid the most? Well, it's the ones that have the most at stake.
Yeah.
And that's often the business owner. Why? Because they're building the model. They're building the frame. They're building the outreach, right? They're building the system. And they might have people that work within that system. You know, it's so funny because when my son was really little, we had this neighbor, he used to work for Goldman Sachs and quit. And, you know, he was looking for what he wanted to do. And one day he was just talking to my son. He's like, so what are you going to do? He's like, well, you know, I'll have A students working for me. It's always A students working for the B and C students. It's funny that my son's young, listening to this kind of stuff, saying this kind of stuff, because he knew that it was about the container that's created. It's about the vision that's being cast. And look, I've just seen where people cast this vision. You're like, are you insane? But then they actually stay committed to it, and other people get inspired, and they bring that intelligence to it. And what happens is you might have people with really high IQs, right? Really high IQs that work for someone with much smaller IQ. But because the vision's big enough, they all do a lot more together. It pushes it where it's a lot more valuable. Why? Because of collaboration.
Yeah.
And so you've got to have someone that casts the vision, because guess what? All the intelligence in the world, all the intelligence, if it's only helping one person, or if it's helping no people, right? Well, guess what? There's not going to be any money in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because it's like, not to throw you under the bus, but you're not the best handyman in the world.
Oh,
right?
no. Like, I did build these shelves over here to the right. It took me 10 times longer than an ordinary person.
Yeah.
I built the shelves in the garage with my son. It was, you know, thank God he was helping. But yeah, our disposal's out right now. My wife doesn't even bother to have me try to reset it, or she just immediately calls someone. Definitely, I am not handy.
Because it's like your time isn't spent on handyman things because that's not your skill set. Versus like in my life, I'm a pretty good handyman, and then I end up spending a lot of my time DIYing stuff when I could be, you know, doing something else to grow a business.
Yeah, one time in my old office, I put up this shelf and I brought my wife down. I'm like, look at this shelf. She's like, oh, she was super impressed. Then it fell down a few hours later. And I was like, what could I say? I look like Jesus, but I'm definitely not a carpenter, you know? And so I want to be a little bit handy, because sometimes it's nice to see something that you've built and manifest. Like I just showed you,
it is
my elk heads, right? That I put up and worked on. I'm using a drill, that kind of stuff. My son put up a bat house outside because we want this bat to stop on our porch. And so like, you know, like small things like that are helpful, but it's not like my most unique thing. It's not the thing that delivers the most value to the world. So, you know, you have to start asking that. And if you can specialize, because you've, maybe partnered with the right people, or there's the right format for you to really bring that impact in a huge way, well, then you can be really prosperous. But even if you make a lot of money, it doesn't mean that you're going to be wealthy. Because to be wealthy, you've got to have like infrastructure.
Yeah.
You've got to have a way to capture it. You got to have a way to, create more with the money that you make. But for some people, they're just disinterested. And so what they do is what I call they relegate. They just have this great intelligence in life, but then they just do this set it and forget it model, right? They just hand their money over and then they wait. They go, oh yeah, I'm just going to wait for compound interest to kick in. And you know what? That takes forever. It takes like 30 years. And it's that last 10 years where it's finally doing something. And so they just shirk responsibility. They abdicate responsibility. They don't leverage on their intelligence. I've seen, like, dude, Weston, this is a perfect example. I've seen really, really intelligent business owners, right? Create an amazing business and then they exit it.
Yeah.
Right. And now they take that money. By the way, they exit from the thing that they had tons of expertise in. Right. And now they just blow the money as an angel investor in a bunch of companies with people that weren't as intelligent as them in the area that they were intelligent in. So what they did is they just get into a very risky model. They just hand their money over. They don't know what's really going on. They think that because they're like, you could be really smart in one area and totally dumb in another.
Yeah.
I like, like there's things that, like, let's call this fast, slow. Like my wife and I did this exercise. I'm like, what are you really fast in? What are you really slow in? Because there's just certain things like my brain functions really fast. I get it. And there's other things I'm like really slow in, the handyman thing being one of them. Right.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, there might be like, because someone's really good at one thing, the world thinks they're good at everything.
Oh, gotcha.
But I think one of the best examples of this would be like Warren Buffett, right?
But so is that part of it, is to like try to identify your fast and your slow and you delegate the slows?
Delegate the shit out of slow, but you have to be willing to be humble enough to admit you don't know everything.
Yeah.
But if your identity is, I'm a freaking genius, then you become stupid in certain areas because you're exposed.
Yeah.
So Warren Buffett, I read this article, he basically read 8 to 9 hours a day.
Jeez.
He'd take like 1 or 2 phone calls on this old, like rotary ass phone. And yet he would just, sometimes he read this 1.5 page document and he decided to invest billions in the company because it just made sense to him.
Yeah.
He didn't put money in the internet in 1999 when everybody else lost their ass, right? Because it didn't make sense to him. He stuck to what he knew, and so ultimately, he's really intelligent in some ways, and then his wife exposed it what a dumb he is in other ways.
Yeah, he didn't know how to cook food.
Doesn't know how to cook food.
Yeah.
Doesn't know how to do it. Like she was sick, and she's like, "Bring me something to throw up into," and he brought her a colander. So like that throw up's gonna go everywhere, right? It's like it's just where he's smart, and he goes, what I was really smart in is in allocating capital.
Jeez.
But guess what? That means that stuff outside of that expertise.
Yeah.
He talked about it like Ted Williams, the baseball player. Ted Williams had a year where he batted over 400. Wow. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So he said, look, let's say that this circles the strike zone. That's, he's like, he would obviously not swing at pitches that are outside the strike zone, but he wouldn't even swing in pitches that were inside the strike zone a lot of times. He had this zone right here that if it came in, that's what he swung at. Swing, swung, swung, not swang, And so he waited for something that be in that zone. And so that's the same thing that Buffett did. He's waited for that zone. So you've heard zone of genius, like stick to your zone of genius. Don't allow that you're smart in one area to spill over and think that you're smart in all areas. So you can't be all things to all people.
So for an entrepreneur, what's that difference between relegate and delegate?
So first thing that happens when they relegate is they do it without enough instruction.
It's just like, oh, I don't want to deal with this.
I don't want to be burdened by it. Then the person doesn't know the condition of satisfaction. They don't know what that looks like. And they might be stressed because that person's so smart. They don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah.
So they're now in fear. They're in fight or flight. Like, oh, I don't want to mess this up. They're not thinking in prosperity terms at all. And so this is why they're like, I hate working for that asshole.
Yeah.
Because that person has high standards and high expectations, but without training.
Yeah. With little information.
Right. With little. So when you relegate, you don't invest in people. And here's the thing, it takes longer for an entrepreneur to invest in that person. And some are afraid because like, what if they leave? What if I invest in them and they go become my competitor? And so they live in this scarcity where they never truly give their best, or they never grow that person because they want to keep in control. And so what they do is they do something, and when they mess up, like, see, and you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And the problem is then that's going to limit what their production is, because they're obviously going to hit a ceiling based upon how much time is there in a day. You know, how much energy could they expend?
Yeah.
And this is why tons of them lose family, you know, are exhausted, don't love their life, or don't even have a love life, because it's like they're addicted to the work because they don't learn how to properly delegate. And the way you properly delegate is you say, hey, I have to invest in this person so they understand what the expectations are. Now, you might use something like a Kolbe profile, which tells the conation of how someone goes about getting something done. And I don't want someone that does it exactly like me.
Yeah.
I just want to say, hey, this is the objective. Here's how we know if that objective is met. If you have issues along the way meeting that objective, come to me. I don't want to micromanage. I want to invest in support.
Yeah.
I want to help them grow. And I want to come from abundance, because, yeah, if they leave, they leave. I'm building enough infrastructure and vision and an amazing team that if someone wants to go do this on their own, they're going to find out there's a lot of invisible factors that make it happen.
Yeah.
And if I hire someone that's just like me, they probably are going to leave, right?
Yeah,
because they think that they could do it better and they want to be inventive. So you have to understand like who you're hiring.
Yeah.
And is it really what they're meant for? Are they meant to be more of an entrepreneur than an entrepreneur? Some people go, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. Do you? Do you want to put money in and not take money out? Do you want to deal with it if there's a lawsuit that's on you? If there's an issue at the office, you're the one where the buck stops and you got to take the responsibility. Some people just want upside potential. So you have to understand who you're hiring, but delegation is you actually create the systems and structure and support for them to thrive.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Your fast, slow model comes in there on the delegation of, what are they fast at? What are they slow at? And you make sure that their focus is on what they're fast at, and you find someone else for their slow side.
Right. Like here's some of my contention in the past with partners.
Yeah.
I had this business and I was the face of the business. I was the front end of the business. I was the one that was teaching. And then, I got recognized here and there when I would be out and about. And that person that was the CEO was like, wait, nobody knows who I am. And then wanted to be the face. Well, guess what? They suck at video.
Yeah.
It's not what they're good at.
Yep.
I suck at the spreadsheets. Like all of a sudden we didn't have clear roles, and basically jealousy created a rift, right? Or, a separation. So that's where some of the contention comes from, is if someone wants to be acknowledged. I had another partnership where it was all about building my brand, and that was the entire thing. And then they're like, well, I should build a website too. And I should be speaking. I'm like, okay, like this is a totally different business and model that we talked about. A lot of people could be really, really smart and intelligent, but they don't feel like they're properly rewarded for it. And when they don't feel they're properly rewarded, that can get them to do illogical things, right? Like get outside of their expertise.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. So we have to really get clear about, number one, where are you intelligent? Where do you have uniqueness? And what do you want to do? And then where don't you have that?
Yeah.
But instead of just relegating, what I believe in is the delegation model is you still take responsibility, you still learn, even if you're not doing all of the work yourself.
Yeah. And the hard part that I think people struggle with is delegation still takes time. And
more time up front. And this is very easy. There's a guy that taught me this early on. Hard, easy, or easy, hard.
Yeah.
Right? Look, it's easy to do it yourself initially. It gets harder when you run out of time, energy, and there's a constraint.
Yeah.
It's hard to train someone, hire someone, but then life gets easier when they're the right person and they help you offload.
Yep.
So this is life. Working out can be hard some mornings, but life gets easier when you're healthy. Eating the right foods is hard to build the system and understand exactly what to eat, but life gets easier when you do it that way. And so this is the same thing in business. Hard, easy, easy, hard.
So going back to the cycle of creation,
Yep.
How does someone go through that cycle of creation and kind of force themselves to not put 100% in on the first round?
So the first cycle is this pre-sale process. So you go to, in pre-sale, I might go to existing people that know me and I say, hey, I'm going to come out with this program. I'm developing it like when I created out this program, Freedom Fast Track, right? I was like, one, if you're willing to come in now and give me feedback, I'll only charge you 50% because your feedback is worth the other half. And because the system's not fully developed, it's a minimum viable product and you're paying before I've even filmed everything, right? So if you love it, then I want to capture that and you become an advocate or you become an endorsement or things like that. And if you don't love it, you're telling me so I can make those improvements along the way. And then I actually get money that can help me build out the system.
And if you don't, then that's the end of the idea.
Well, like, okay, so here's a good example of a pre-sale. I had a mentor, his name's Rick. He's like, hey, T. Harv Eker wants me to speak, but I'm not really a speaker, but you've been through my material. What if we spoke together and we made an offer at the end? And he's like, let's film these 27 modules. I'm like, well, let's film 3. Let's see how we do together.
Yeah.
And let's film those and then let's present and let's see how it goes when we present and what level of interest there is in it. And so we got this, our friend Alex introduced us. So we got this, like, it was crazy. It was like, I think 7-minute standing ovation before we even came out. Harv knew how to hype up his crowd. Alex is the MC and he's like, dude, these are the guys. And so like, we're just like, and so Rick was just like, couldn't believe it. People are taking pictures of his slides. So he goes over his normal time, even though he was so rehearsed and so practiced. And now when it's time for me to make the offer, there is no time. Harv's in the back being like, you guys, your time's up. So we didn't make the offer. And then Rick's like, dude, why didn't you make the offer? I'm like, because you went over time and we had those applause breaks and we just, we didn't have the space for it. And it's better that we didn't build everything out because I don't think we should do this together.
Gotcha.
And I went with my friend Patrick and they built it and they sold it and it was a much better fit. So that's one example. Another example is another Garrett White and I, we built this Freedom Fast Track program where we pre-sold $150,000 of it, right, with our sales team. So that $150,000, we then hired this guy, Neil. We started to, we had Neil, we had Rebecca was helping us with writing the workbooks and all that kind of stuff. And we started to film the things. Well, we had 7 weeks to do it. So we had 1 module per week that came out because we had to release it for the people who'd bought.
Yeah.
So they weren't getting it all at once. And then they gave us feedback like, oh, we want this and this. And so we added those elements afterwards. But it actually put the stakes in where, hey, Garrett and I were filming at 1:30 a.m. sometimes because it was due. And that's what we had to get it done because we'd already, had people invest the money. Now, they only had to put half into this of what it eventually became. And it proved out to be really successful that we should roll this program out. And we saw from the sales and we saw from like the people that were utilizing it, what we could do to improve. And then we just had the other iterations. So we just kept going through the next cycle. The first cycle was we got the videos done. The second cycle was people wanted tests and workbooks. So we added those, right?
Gotcha.
Then the third cycle was people wanted one-on-one support. So we added coaching. You see, so every cycle we went through and we said, how do we improve it one stage at a time? But we were profitable the whole way through.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one because like for someone who's very detail oriented or perfectionist, they could do their 100% on 3 of them instead of trying to do their 100% on all 27.
Exactly. And pre-sale let us know not to do it. And imagine if we would have filmed all 27 modules, how much money we would have spent versus just having 3 and being like, hey, this is a good test. And we ended up gifting it to people and people that did, want to sign up. I said, hey, this program's not ready. Rick will get back to you when the program is ready. And it was just, it let me off the hook without having been like committed with time, money, resources.
Yeah. Yeah, I had an entrepreneur friend who every time he would have a new idea, he would build a website, a very simple website for it and put it up for sale. And then when people would call him, he'd be like, hey, we're out of stock, but would you like me to call you when we're back in stock? And it's like he never actually had the product at the time. And that was his way of kind of validating like whether there was interest. Idea. Yeah.
That's what's great about the cycle of creation is you can go through iterations. So let me use an example. So multiplier. In May of 2024, we had a team retreat. And what had happened is earlier that month, I had a meditation retreat up here at the cabin. I had this major download of like what I was going to do, which was multiplier. And so we outlined what is the program, what is the process. And so at first, I was the main person selling it. because I was in the DMs with people and I was just getting the momentum to build. We didn't even have coaches yet. That didn't exist. We hadn't really even built out the network, right? So what we were going to do is we were going to have this app using Mighty Networks.
Yeah.
B, I was going to teach weekly. I knew what the framework was. Make more money, keep your money, grow yourself to be a multiplier. C, so I had these workbooks that I could put together. I had this fast start program that I could put together and have. So basically I had like 20% of what it is today, but it was less money, right? We got it started in momentum. And now we have entire AI tools that people get when they come in. They get a results facilitator, which gives them one-on-one support up to twice a month. Yes, I'm still doing the teaching, but all the past teachings are in the app. We've now got the Money Multiplier Masterclass that was bonus for everybody that's in Multiplier. Now that goes in the app so they can watch it anytime that they want. We now have a much more robust network of accountants and attorneys and you name it. Like,
and
we've got all
costs
those resources
more now,
right?
Because more has been added. Yeah.
We raised the price. It's $6,000 more, but we're exponentially increasing the value. So the first cycle got it off the ground and got it started. If we would have waited, I don't know where we'd be today.
Yeah.
We got it going.
Yeah. Because if you waited to try to build it out how it is now, you never
overwhelming.
There. Yeah.
Exhausting. Destroy all our money and resources. It's like, our mutual friend, Rich Christensen, and Zigzag Principle, right, is exactly what he talks about. He's like, look, if you have this vision up here, right, this is your vision. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just drew a head, but
well, that's where visions come from, right?
Yeah. If you have a vision, you don't go, all right, here I am. I'm going to run straight up the hill to get to my vision. He says, if you're driving somewhere and if you just drive straight, well, you're going to go off a cliff here because you were supposed to zig and zag. So
you'll end up in a cornfield.
Yeah, when you have a vision, he's like, you zigzag your way there. So you start here and you begin with, how do I get to cash flow? Then how can I take that cash flow and get more resources, right? And then how can I get that to scale? Because now maybe I'm adding people or infrastructure. So, but he's like, you always zigzag and always come back to cash flow. And that way you don't run out of steam. You get to that vision, but you zigzag your way up the hill, so to speak.
Yeah.
And that's really smart. But people without zigzag, they might run out of cash because they're really smart with ideas, not so smart with cash flow.
Yeah. A lot of smart people are very occupied because of all the things that they've taken on. And so the idea of delegating or even that, of kind of doing this new cycle of creation process or doing the zigzag process, like logically it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But it's like, how do they, in my own life, I feel like, man, if I could just like reset everything and kind of start from zero, I could go that approach, but it's like, that's not really possible. Right.
Like, this is the thing is, these are all skills that anyone can learn. And some will be better than others. But like, if you never learn this, it's like not knowing a language. You might be the smartest person in the land, but if you don't speak the language, you can't communicate with anyone. And all of the prosperity depends on communication and taking action. Yeah. So this is the key. Just because you're smart in one area, don't apply that and think that you have to be intelligent in everything that's out there. Be willing to like ask questions. Be willing to come in with a beginner's mind and say, what can I learn here? Because if you're too busy holding up appearances of I'm the smartest person in the room, well, like my friend Jason Garnard would say, is you're probably in the wrong room. Be in a room where you're learning from other people, where you can grow, where there's still room for like, how can you achieve more versus being in there proving who you already are.
So strive to be the dumbest person in the room. Or to be in rooms where you
do not feel like you've arrived.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about being the dumbest person in the room. It's about not thinking you know everything.
Yeah.
People that think they know everything have major blind spots that lead to losses. Because now, like I remember when I was investing and I thought I was Midas. I thought I had the Midas touch early on. Everything I touched turned to gold because of just timing and luck, not because of skill. And so at that point, I thought I knew too much. So I stopped learning. I thought, look at my results instead of being like, where am I exposed? What could I learn from other people? What don't I know? And so there's this like model. Let's say this is all the knowledge in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe what you know is just a tiny sliver.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 1%. Then there's what you know you don't know. That might be another percent, right? I know I don't know how a cell phone works, how I'm talking to someone. I know there's like satellites, but I couldn't tell you the inner workings of that, right?
Yeah.
And then there's this like 98% of what we don't even know that we don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And when people are so smart that maybe they know 2% instead of 1%, there's still 97% of what they don't know they don't know. So don't arrive.
Yeah.
Have curiosity. I mean, I think about how, like, I just think Joe Rogan's super smart, but he's also super curious.
Yeah. He asks questions.
He's consistently learning more instead of thinking that he knows everything.